it is ultimately important for you to look at your goals, truly what you want to do in your life, and then look at the people who you spend the most time with in your life and figure out if that lines up.
Is that better? I think everybody's got me now. All right, so let's start from here. All right, so we're going to talk about what to do in Q2 this morning. And so we've got a list of yeah, there we go. We got it fixed now. All right, perfect. All right, so what to do in Q2. So, a lot of people had great years in 2020. Some people didn't have such good years, right? So we're going to talk about how to bounce back from that or how to capitalize on the momentum that you have. So, it takes a lot of focus. It takes a lot of determination and discipline to be able to capitalize, week by week, quarter by quarter, to make sure that every single month and every single year is one that you can look back and be proud of. And so first, I want to say good morning to everybody because everybody missed that when I was doing it before. So Jared Bird, good morning to you. Carla, Trudy, Tammy, Sanjay, Keith, David. Let's see. Dave Pollock, what's happening, man? Matt Johnson and John Rugg, good morning to you guys, and thank you guys for being here. And Tammy Clark and everybody on the West Coast, Mr. Callaway, thank you guys for being up with me at 4:30 a.m. on the West Coast. Man, I appreciate you guys so much. So what to do in Q2, what to do in the second quarter to make sure that 2021 is as successful as it can possibly be. So the number one thing that I will say about Q2 is that most of the time when we get out of that quarter one time frame, we are looking to refocus, right? Because there's a lot of chaos to the start to the year, isn't there? We're setting budgets. We're starting to have conversations in our families. We got New Year's. We got all kinds of holidays. We got things going on that we're coming out of, right? And so there's just kind of a lot of all over the place stuff that's going on in the first quarter. New Year's resolutions, things we're trying to change, all kinds of stuff. So when we get into quarter two, the most important thing that we can do is focus, right? So it is revisiting our goals, revisiting those commitments, revisiting those things that we wanted to do that maybe have fallen off since the beginning of the year that we can refocus on, right? So it takes focus because now 2021 is 25% gone, right? So when we look at it, how are we actually doing? Are we doing well? What are some of the behaviors that we need to change? How can we make a bigger impact on those goals, on those things that we want to do by creating new disciplines, refocusing on the disciplines that maybe we started the year strong with, but now have maybe tailed off, right? So refocusing or focusing is number one on the list. I would say that, kind of judging where you're at after the first quarter is one of the most important things that you can do. And everybody knows, right? There's a pulse to your life. There's a pulse to your business. There's a pulse to your family. There's a pulse to everything. And so visiting that and saying, okay, where are we? And how does this look? Like, are we happy with where we're at? Or do we have some things that we need to dial in? The second thing is turn up the heat. So turn up the heat on your goals. Turn up the heat on the pace that you're working at. Turn up the heat on every single aspect of your life. So everything that you're doing from Q1, kind of getting things set in place and getting a direction set and getting the vision set for the year. Q2, it's time to turn up the heat. It's time to start to take that action necessary for you to actually be able to realize those goals that you have set. Super, super important for you to increase the pace of what you're doing. From quarter one to quarter two and on into quarter three, you got to be picking up the pace, right? And a lot of people look at this and say, well, we want to stay balanced. We want to stay steady. I'm telling you, if you don't pick up the pace, if you are not the team that gets better as the game goes on, you're going to have a hard time winning against those teams that are, right? That get better as the game goes on. The third thing I wrote down here is learn from Q1. What are the things that maybe we're not doing so well? What are the things that we are doing well that we need to do more of? What are the things that we absolutely have to have that maybe last year we didn't do, but in quarter one we did? So learning from those first 3 months of the year, really important. It's important to have those conversations and kind of evaluate how things are going and what are the things that we can learn from the first quarter of the year. All right. The next thing is examine your numbers. When I say examine your numbers, I'm not talking about results. I'm talking about activity. So what are the activities necessary for you to reach the goals that you have set, right? And are you on pace to hit those goals? Or are we slacking a little bit? Are we a little bit behind? Have we got off to a slow start? It doesn't mean it's going to be a bad year, but it means you better know that you're off to a slow start so that you can start to capitalize. You can start to motivate your people. You can start to motivate yourself so that as you get into Q2, you start closing that gap, man, and you start to build that momentum if you don't have it already. So examining your numbers and knowing exactly where you're at and having that conversation, communicating that with everybody on your team so that you understand exactly what it's going to take for you to capitalize at a higher level on Q2 versus Q1, right? So taking those lessons and examining the numbers of where the results were and then capitalizing on what's good, you do more of, what's not good, obviously you got to course correct, right? Pretty simple, but important for you guys to remember as we're getting into Q2 here. Last but not least, and this is definitely one of the most important things on the list, evaluate how everyone is doing. This is a great time of year for you to be having conversations with your kids. How was the first quarter of the year? With your employees, with your teammates, with your spouse, with your family. How is everyone doing, right? How was the first quarter? That matters, right? We got 3 months of results, 25% of 2021, more than 25% at this point, is gone. So how is everyone doing? Inside your business, if you have new people, very important to have structured conversations with them to let them know how they're doing. If they're doing well, they need to know that. That's encouraging to them. If they're not doing so well, if there's some things that they can do better, trust me, they'll appreciate you telling them, right? So take the time to do that. Take the time to evaluate how everyone is doing. And you're going to be off to a much, much better start in Q2 than you were in Q1. If you built momentum in Q1, you want to capitalize on that. If you haven't built the momentum, then you need to create a plan that actually creates that momentum in the first couple of weeks of the first quarter, or of the second quarter rather. So when it comes to 2020, if you did not have a great year in 2020, you want to look at and kind of just separate that from 2021 and realize that in 2020, there were unique challenges. Now, here's what's important for you to realize. If you drug those challenges in and you identified 2021 as if it was going to be a repeat of 2020, because up in your mind, you were telling yourself that probably it wasn't going to go well again for you. That's where you have to change, right? 2021 is its own story. You get to write the story of 2021 all on your own. And so if you had a not so good year in 2020, do not bring that with you. If you had momentum from 2020, here's what I want you to focus on. Not the fact that you had a great 2020, because that can be a trap, right? You can start to convince yourself that it's automatically going to happen again. But what you want to take from 2020, if you did have a good year, is the lessons that you learned through the process of creating that good year. So what were the behaviors that you had to implement that made you great in 2020? If you were great in 2020, there are specific disciplines and behaviors that you exhibited that made you a champion in 2020. Not everybody won. If you were one of the people that did, there was something unique about something that you did. Think about that and be able to duplicate it into 2021, and that's going to carry you to entirely new levels. If you could stay focused during the chaos of 2020 and you were able to get your team on track and capitalize and have a great year, what was it that made you great? Do those things again. And again, if you did have a great year, separate that, realize that there were some unique challenges to that year, but maybe go back and look at some of the things that you could have done better, should have done better, and implement those into the first part of 2021 here. So again, what to do in Q2? Focus, refocus, turn up the heat. You got to get more activity, right? Learn the lessons that you brought from Q1. I mean, those are real results at this point. You have over 3 months of results in 2021. Look at those numbers, figure out what it is that is going well, what it is that needs course corrected, and then most importantly, give everyone some feedback. How are we doing? How are they individually doing, and how are we doing as a company? How are we doing as a family? How are we doing between your spouse and yourself? Communication is key. Make sure you look back at the first quarter of 2021 and figure out what lessons there are and what things you can capitalize on from the momentum that you've created. I hope this was helpful to you guys, and I will see you again tomorrow morning, same place, same time, right here on Morning Perspective. Love you guys. Thanks for being here.